Howdy hackers and welcome to another episode of FairLight TV. I am always really excited when I get the opportunity to talk to one of the old rock stars from the C64 scene. He started before you possibly bought your C64. He might even have quit the C64 before you bought your C64. But he was one of the original rock stars. Matcham was member of the group Network. I've never heard of any of the other members of Network, but Matcham I surely heard about. He was one of those whose name you were supposed to know. He made the original Time Cruncher, so he brought LZ compression to the C64 platform in a way where it made super sense. So, over to Øyvind, Matcham. Hello, Øyvind Asheim. Is that correctly pronounced?
Very good.
Or as we sceners know you, Matcham. I guess, Matcham, you are one of the guys that sort of paved the way into modern compression on the C64, and possibly a number of the people invested in the platform today don't really know that you are sort of the founding father of that genre inside. But we will get to compression in a while. We'll just start with your history and your group. You started in the group called Network. Give us some background on Network.
Yeah. It was a group from Molde in Norway.
Yeah.
It's a small city with about 20,000 people. I guess I could say we started. We were interested in playing games and stuff, and we figured out we could play for free. We didn't have to put money into the machines to play. So we went to these bookstores that sold Commodore 64, and at least for me that was like I went there very frequently and made some friends, and eventually it became a group of let's say 4 or 5 guys in the maybe 83, 84. I think I got my Commodore 64 in 83, and it of course took some time before Network was started. It could be 85. I don't remember exactly.
Well, looking at the range of members, you are the name that sort of stands out. I've never heard of any of the other guys. There is a guy named Ryger. There used to be a guy named Ryger in Science 451, but I don't think this is the same guy. There has to be a Norwegian local guy, right?
I guess.
Then 6 went to Illusion. That's also sort of a known group from Norway. But the other guys, I've never heard of. What happened to them?
I don't really remember much of the handles either, I must admit. I wasn't kind of the organizer. I was more of a coder who joined because of my interest in this programming stuff and playing games, of course.
But I mean, was this basically a team of friends from Molde? So all of the members were basically from Molde?
Yeah, from the Molde and the districts around, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andor, Archie, Ben, Birachi, Blitter, Krept, Dumbo, yeah, I'm sorry.
I know this group, it started on the 64 and then merged over into Amiga. And I think a lot of the group members were mostly on the Amiga. But
Oh, okay.
I'm not
They're
sure.
sort of they're still listed on the C64 side. So, but
Okay.
okay, that could very well be the fact that you were a group and you were on two platforms, and they are listed here as members because they're probably listed in some sort of production, even if they were predominantly Amiga. So, Network was also on the Amiga, and did it make any impression on the Amiga?
We had some, very cool demos, 3D stuff. I can't really say I remember the details, but I remember I was impressed. It was really good stuff.
So, did you also, after your C64 days, did you also migrate to the Amiga, or you just?
I got my Amiga 500, yes, and
Yeah.
I implemented my crunchers on the 68,000 Motorola.
Mm.
So it was working, and yeah, could use it. It was fun.
So, I mean, there is a time cruncher on the Amiga, and that is actually your thing. I was sure somebody just took your name, but that's not it. It's
Well, I don't
yours.
know. I think there are quite a few versions of it. I don't really know all of them. Just know that I released most of them on the 64 and something on the Amiga.
Right,
But it
because
was mostly on the 64.
I had a talk with Chucky just a few weeks ago, and he was referencing Time Cruncher, and that was sort of one of the things where he did, those minuscule changes and then released it under his own name, and he was a bit
Mhm.
blushing when he said that. So that was. It was probably not your version. It was some version that he took and patched a little bit and then released.
Yeah, there was
Okay.
a lot of versions of it, but it was quite easy to make some small change. Like I remember this sound that was like in the original version 3.1. I think I just changed the volume
Mm.
of the SID, and it turned into a really obnoxious noise. And I'm sure a lot of people have wanted to get rid of that one. And good
So
idea.
So super, and I mean, let's look at the number of your things. It was very, very much about compression, and you had all sorts of really funky names for them. And I know sequence crunching, and I know run length encoding, and I know Huffman. But if we go through a few of your releases, if you point, what kind of sort of technology you're using in each of them. Super flexor.
Well, that sounds like static Huffman, more or less, like variable length encoded bytes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, because there is an interview with you in the Norwegian instance of Data Magazine where I think you reference Flexor, and as I read it there, it was actually Huffman, so that sort of correlating with my note.
okay.
Speed Packer, that sounds like run length encoding.
I actually think it was the time cruncher, but with a really small sliding history window. So instead of looking through, I think maybe 8 kilobytes, it was 256 bytes.
Okay.
And it still got decent compression. So I just launched it so that people could crunch things without waiting so long.
Yeah.
Could be a nice test.
We are getting to time cruncher, but
Yeah,
you also
yeah.
say in this interview that time is because time cruncher is this picked because it took so very long.
Yeah, that was the reason for it, but it wasn't. It was faster than some of the other sequence crunchers, so it was.
And demo packer.
Can't really
Uh,
recall.
Speed crunch. That sounds like the speed packer, but
Sounds
just
like a speed packer too. Yeah,
oh.
it could be that it's one of those are run length encoding. I remember there was one time I tried to make the fastest run length encoding decompressor.
Yeah.
One of them could have this name, like this speed packer or something.
Okay, and the reason for that would be that compression wouldn't be the ultimate goal. You wanted it to pack, but it should also be near instant in depacking.
Yeah, yeah. It was a sort of some competition to just depack quickly. And then I looked through the number of cycles on the different commands and tried to optimize the code. Because of course it's a quite simple, really simple algorithm, run length encoding.
So there is a guy that releases all letters, and there is a series of letter between Zoltan, Mr. Z, and Honey of 1001 Crew, I think, where they are discussing the aspect of decrunch times and how to optimize decrunch times. Yeah, interesting stuff.
Interesting, yeah.
And denser, is that a?
Yeah, that's I think it's just run length encoding,
Yeah.
but that it could compress like the whole memory more or less. It was with the Commodore, it was sometimes the program would fill almost all the memory, and so need some special handling to try to, enable that.
Yeah, well, anything bigger than 0200 up until the end of memory is very difficult, because then you start reading and writing on the stack for that. So, and then it becomes really difficult. I guess one of the few tricks that has been implemented now is implementing a little depack routine, very, very small one on the sprite pointers, because they are read and write and full 8 bits. So you can actually place something there and execute it there.
Wow. Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to your sort of magnum opus, the Time Cruncher. Take us through the history of Time Cruncher.
Yeah. It was I don't remember all the details, I must admit, but it was known that there existed crunchers, and I was a bit fascinated by the concept. But it wasn't until one of the group members said, we should have our own cruncher. It was sort of like one of the things cool groups had. And I thought it was a bit interesting. I also looked more into it, and then I looked at the other crunchers, and tried to understand what was going on there. And so I probably started with some run length encoding packer, and when doing this simple stuff, you still had to learn about loading and storing, opening up different parts of the memory. And yeah, I still needed to know how to do the assembly coding. So yeah.
You sort of, so LZ, Lempel, Civ, or whatever, that's sort of the family names of the two inventors of sort of sequence crunching, and you picked that up from a magazine, or where was it?
No, I noticed that there was one cruncher on the Commodore 64 that used equal sequences as the method of compression. I think it was called super compressor. Or something, and so then makes sense. It's possible to crunch data by looking at equal sequences.
And
I don't think I have read about Lempel sieves until later.
Okay.
No.
Who did the super compressor?
That is a good question. I haven't checked it, but it was either super compressor or super compactor, and it could have like multiple crunchers in one.
Okay, super compressor. There is something called super compressor by Flash.
It was from 85 or something. It could be that one.
Yeah, they always brand it 1941.
Oh, yeah. Which very early.
No. Okay, and Card Cruncher from 1001 Crew was also that was
Yeah,
also sequence crunching, right?
yes, yes. So that was like the best cruncher to beat
Mhm.
at this time.
I
And
think you have the comparison in a few of the sort of starting screens of the early versions of Time Cruncher. That okay, now you don't have to use Time Cruncher and Super Compressor anymore because they're
oh,
sort of obsoleted by Time Cruncher.
oh, that sounds okay.
Well, let's
Yeah,
see if
yeah,
we can have a
yeah.
few screen grabs and show that.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of stuff in these scrollers,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So, and I mean, this for me, these tools were sort of the really sought after, and your group should have like one version. And if you release something, it wouldn't be the best version. You could sort of release your third best version just to show that you had something that was even better than that, right?
Yeah, that was idea. Well, it first started, I think version 3.1 was like a major release, and but I was just happy to have something working,
Mm.
and I gave it to somebody, and somehow it was out there in the open, and then it was something everybody had access to. But I kept refining, this sequence compressors, they or the Lampo sieves. It's the principle is often that you have this length distance pairs
Mm.
that denotes one sequence, and the length is the length of the sequence, and the distance it's the sort of like an offset from a pointer position. And when you have this length distance pair, you know where to copy the sequence from. And yes, where was I?
Yeah, so the how you optimized sort of the
Yeah,
algorithm
yeah,
over time, I guess.
yeah, yeah. That's number 3.1. It was it was not the best it could be. Of course, it was in particular these length distance values that was encoded with variable length coding, like a variable number of bits, where the most frequent values would be encoded with as few bits
Mm.
as possible.
Mm.
And then the job was to, sort of optimize based on a common pattern,
Mm.
or like the normal file would look like. So
But
that was like
it's
different from.
basically Huffman encoding, right? So both would that be both the length and the offset? You are sort of Huffman coding the most common offsets and the most common length.
That would be like an improvement over what I did. I sort of hard coded the pattern
Oh.
tree. You could say that first I read one bit. If it's a zero, then I say okay. Then I need to know. Then I need to have one more bit
Mm.
to know the length parameter.
Mm.
So if it's really short sequence, like 2 or 3 bytes, then it would be just one zero, and then if it's two, then it's another zero. If it's three, then it's a one.
Mm.
And if it's like four byte the sequence, then the first bit would be one, and the second would be zero.
Mm.
And then it would be like a couple of more bits to denote the little bit longer
Mm.
sequence. And the job, it was to balance this tree in an optimal as possible way. But I didn't go as far as doing it in Huffman code. It would be better,
Mm.
yes. But also then you would need to include the Huffman tree in the file,
Mm.
and it would be like a bigger decompressor,
Oh,
and it
then
was
you need to
usually included in the file. So
you need to gain the you need to be more efficient to allow for the tree to be included in the depacker then. So
yes,
yeah.
and I didn't know about the Huffman at the time. It was of course a great invention, but no, didn't know about it.
Well,
But
Huffman was never a big thing on the 64. I know a number of people that played with it, but I mean, it builds on entropy, so you need to use it on text files and stuff for it to be really efficient. If you have random data, it's very difficult. If you pack a game, it would never be valid compared to a sequence cruncher.
we could in this sequence cruncher, then it's like two components. It's like the literal data, that's the original data, the raw bytes, that I call it the literals, and then it's the matches, like the length distance pairs. And this would not be, well, let me think here. Oh, I forgot.
I've had a discussion with Magnus Lind, who's done the Exomizer. So you run a compressor, you run on the PC, and one of the things that he sort of, I think he's made really good is the literals. So normally, if you take a sequence cruncher and then you crunch it again, the result would be disastrous. Basically, it would grow in size.
But the reason why that happens is probably because you have both the literal data and the pointers in the same file, and the pointers there, since that's a bit stream, it will be totally random numbers as bytes, but the literals will still be compressible if you run Huffman on just the literals. Then you need to do it while you're doing the sequence crunching. So it's in the same step. This would happen later on in the scene for sure. And I know some crunchers or compressors on the PC that used that. Was there was Pecosip.
Okay.
The deflate algorithm used Huffman for that, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sort of schooled that you should do a run length encoding, and then you add your intro, and then you crunch everything with the sequence cruncher afterwards, because the run length encoding would also ensure that the big areas are shrunk into smaller, you pack them into smaller ones, and then the probability that sequences would appear within sort of the scan range would also be greater, because you're not having all those same byte areas in between them. But I'm sad to say that I can now run Exomizer twice, and there is no point in doing RLE anymore.
No, that's great. You don't have to do all these steps. It would be really interesting to know how this Exomizer works.
It's open source, so it's just downloading it. Let's have a chat afterwards, and I can send you the link to that one, because that is sort of the officially best one on the C64 today.
I see.
All right, so 3.1, that was sort of the major one. That's the one everybody used, and I also got the level version, and the first file I tried crunching with the level version was the decruncher. So I crunched the decruncher, and then I didn't have any decruncher for it anymore. So I was never able to use Time Cruncher, the level version of Time Cruncher 3.1, because I destroyed the depacker.
Yeah. Wow. You were not able to get another?
Yeah, well, eventually I think I did, but it was really silly. I was really happy I got it, because I was very low in the food chain at this point in time. So
you started in 97. Yeah. Okay, so it was already important program to have.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah,
to.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So, reading up on the history again, the 4.0, that was just spread within a very closed community. It says that 1001 Crew, Danish Gold, Triton, and the Stand couldn't have it, but nobody else.
I think if so many groups have it, then it's difficult to keep it within enclosed. I know that there was a like a source code version of it was written at one stage, and then when the source code was available, then it was easier to make improvements.
Yeah, back then reassembly was a lot more difficult. If you could do like a kilobyte or two or three, but beyond that, the C64 couldn't really handle the big size of the. You needed to have the binary and also generate the source code if you didn't generate it directly to disk, and it was dreadfully slow. It's so much easier today, I can tell you.
Yeah, it's a different story, but it was a good practice. Just work with the bits and the bytes.
And then I have found another version that was sort of with you and the Stand of Scandinavian Crack Force. Was that a collaboration, or did it just take your work and refine it further?
I think that was my. I remember writing emails with the Stand, and so yeah, probably there was some sort of collaboration.
And one of the other really interesting parts when reading your text, the Data Magazine text, is the how you pick on Galleon of Sphinx for
Oh,
making a hacked version, and he eventually sort of took on the baton and released his Cruel Crunch. That was sort of the cruncher that was the big one after Time Cruncher was sort of obsoleted. So it's
oh,
really interesting that you point him out as being
no, then
one
I'm
that
sorry.
produced hacked
Sorry, but
versions.
it's great that it was developed, or that more crunchers came. Of course, yes.
And then Time Crunch 5 by Stoat and Tim, that was built on your principles. And I guess, did you have a discussion with them and they implemented it themselves? Or did they just
This,
reverse engineer your stuff and re-implemented it?
yeah, that's also don't remember. So could be both of it.
Okay.
I must be. I don't remember having had this talk there now. But
It's a bit weird that they are reusing your name and then just incrementing the version number. They could have picked their own name, I would say, but if it's built from ground up by themselves.
if it was like a small improvement, then could be a good idea to use it, I guess.
To be honest, I think it's a re-implementation. I think they've sort of taken your ideas and then they coded it themselves. I think it's different, but I shouldn't say absolutely sure because I haven't talked to them.
Okay.
Two
Yes.
Brits from CompuNet, guess. They did demos and stuff on CompuNet. So,
Mm-hmm. Nice.
so are you still doing any work on like compression technology, or is this just something you did during a phase and then you moved on?
It was just a phase, I must say, but now afterwards, I've been looking into it now and then to just
Mm.
figure out how was this related to the other Lample sieves, because like there are lots of Lample sieves variants,
Mm.
and this thing I was particularly interested in was when this variable length encoding like stored in a bit stream started. You know, what time did the compressors start to store the length and distance pairs as variable length encoded values? And I haven't seen any examples before the time cruncher.
Mm.
So that's why I was like trying to look for it. but I haven't found it. I actually used Copilot, Bing's Copilot, and asked, how when was the first mention of using this variable length encoding, like stored in a bit stream? That it's a bit stream. It's makes it easier to pack the data more compactly than if it was stored in sort of like a byte header, or like you say we use the 2 upper bits in a byte to encode a number, then it would not be so flexible. So that's why I was looking for the bitstream version, and yes, so I found that it's in the 1999 with in the Pico zip, but I haven't found it before that, so that's why I'm still looking for it.
All right. Did you have a look? Did you reassemble or have a look at the competitors here, like the Card Crunch, how they did it, and or did you just look at just crunch your stuff and compare?
Well, I probably looked at the decompressor, to sort of see if there was something to understand here, and yeah.
I mean, still with pride. I would say that getting inspiration and getting ideas, but re-implementing them yourself is always sort of okay. So I wouldn't hold that against you. You were sort of being a guy that did a big change in an industry, even if it's a small community such as the C64, it's still sort of hat off impressive. So I just like to ensure that your name continues to be remembered as sort of the founding father of compression on the C64.
Well, I don't look upon myself as the founding father of because there are lots of crunchers already.
Okay, fair enough. But you took sort of a quantum leap in compared to the other ones. So, well, I'd still say that holds true. But you didn't just do compressors. You did an Amiga emulator as well. I didn't get it to start. I just get a kickstart picture. What happens then?
Enter the password. Like the Amiga backwards, No, yeah, no. It was easier to make a Commodore emulator on the Amiga.
Yeah.
So
still very difficult though. But
yeah. Now I heard the best Commodore 64 emulator is Swedish.
I mean, the jury is still out. So Per Håkan Sundell is doing his CCS 64, and that's absolutely great. But he's doing it himself, and it only improves when he has the opportunity to improve it. So I guess most people will use Vice, which is sort of a community effort. Gröpas being sort of German guy, Gröpas doing most of the coordination for that project. So.
Right, yeah, Vice I also tried out, yeah. Now I saw it in the store. You could buy the full-size Commodore 64.
It's an FPGA implementation of basically an old version of Vice. That is the C64. It looks the same and sort of works the same basically, but it's basically an emulator in FPGA.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could emulate it directly on the computer. You don't need to have a physical box, and then you can buy a real one to have like a little shrine where you have your C64. I have mine, but I've actually cheated. So I have an Ultimate 64, which is sort of a remake of the motherboard. So the motherboard isn't original, and it is sort of, but it's a lot more compatible than the C64 because that is also done to. It's supplied with a number of preset games, so it doesn't really work as a computer. It works more like a console with a set of pre-made games, and then you can add additional games. But the purpose of it is not to use it as a general computer. The purpose is to play the games they are supplying.
Yeah. Like most of this you can buy in the store, I guess.
Yeah. There is so just to make that sure, the Amiga emulator, I'm assuming it's just showing a picture and it's a joke, right?
Yeah, surely it was that. Maybe, probably it was the loading screen, maybe Guru Meditation. But I don't recall it actually.
One of the other things that you are mentioned doing is a game called Maximum Retaliation. I guess there was work, but it never materialized into a final game.
Yeah, I remember I said to the journalist in this Dator magazine that the game is planned for Christmas.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure which Christmas it was planned for.
Oh, you still have a few months to go before Christmas this year, so you can still do it.
If I can find the discs, I don't have it anymore, but maybe it's online somewhere.
No. There is a reference on the site, Games That Weren't. They are sort of listing all the games that are in production but never made it, or in the state that it's found. But yours is just mentioned as a game that could happen, and then they have taken out the screen grab from Dator magazine as sort of the loading picture. And that is everything that is available online. There is nothing else.
Yeah, I had a good help with the graphics on this game. I didn't do any of the graphics, so that was one of the network members. I don't remember the handle of.
And then I think the Games That Weren't are also referencing that the music was released sort of independently of the game a year or so later, and it suggested that is when they gave up, that they will not be a game, so let's release the music anyway. So it's out there, but
it's better than nothing.
Sad, and you don't have your disc anymore.
No, I think it was in 2007. Network, they have this number also. Every group had their own number, which was like when loading the file and listing it, you could see a number, like the line number of the basic program.
Yeah.
And we had 2007. And I think by coincidence, I might have gotten rid of all my Commodore 64 stuff in 2007. So I don't have it anymore. It would have been nice.
Oh, you sold it, and don't say you threw it away.
I gave it to someone, yeah.
Yeah, and as a representative of the general community, if you could ask that someone if that someone still has it, and you could retrieve the data back, that would be appreciated.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah, please do. Let's conclude this with a few sort of final things. You went on from the C64 and Amiga to join Fast, and my understanding of that is that it was sort of a Norwegian search company, basically Norway's Google, but didn't make it as big.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I started there in 1999, and when one of the big thing in the beginning, we had like a bigger index, about 200 million documents in the searchable index, while Google, they had I think 60 million or something. This number changed all the time, of course, and the website, it was called All the Web, but it was eventually sold off, and the focus was on making search engines for company internal use. And that was later acquired by Microsoft.
Okay. I mean, it's to be honest, it's really cool that you had your own Google and you basically also had your own Chrome because Opera was also a Norwegian product that was trying to find its market fit. So it was a great browser at the time, but also never made it big because they didn't have the marketing aspects that Google managed to capture. So yeah, they never managed to survive.
Well, Opera, yeah, they sold it to, I think it was China. It's mhm.
Yeah. But you're not doing that anymore. From what I understand, you are doing more sort of search, still search, but more search for travel, right?
Yes, I have my startup, work on my startup. It's a flight search or a travel search engine where you can search for, you know, primarily flights, but also mix in with trains and buses. So that way you can find more routes to the destination,
Mm.
and sometimes can be quite a bit cheaper. If you like take the train or bus for 2 hours,
Mm.
you find another flight from there.
Mm.
So, and also I focus on the the environmental aspects.
Mm.
Can be lower emissions when you, because maybe you find a direct flight,
Mm.
so it's sort of straight to the destination
Mm.
instead of flying indirect.
Mm.
So yeah,
And the commercial model, this is something you direct directly to consumers. So sort of everybody is suggesting to or advised that they should use it rather than something else. Or is it something you sell and somebody else puts their front end in front of?
it's like a website. It's you can go
Mm.
there. It's panflights.com, and there you just search for trips, and there are links to where you can get the tickets.
So
When it's buses and trains, then you need to search on external sites again to find the ticket.
and your commercial model, is it
Yeah, there
marketing
is
on the site or?
it's sort of like an affiliate, get a small commission if people
Okay.
buy the ticket from the
Kickback
links.
from the sellers of the actual travels then.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Super, super. Even I ran out of questions, and thank you so much for your time. It was absolutely excellent, and we were briefly in contact back in the really old days. You were always one of those esteemed guys that was very, very accessible for guys like me at the time. So I'm still very grateful for that and getting access to stuff via you. So super thanks.
Do you remember when we met? Was it in Sweden? Was it like a party there in
No, I don't think
yeah.
we ever met. I was very shy at the very first years, and you were doing something else by the time I got out of my little country cave.
Okay.
So no, it was physical letters. So we did exchange a few physical letters. I'm sure I still have them, and I think I've scanned most of them. So I should be able to send you a link to what you send me. But yeah, let's
Great.
take that offline as well.
I have some of these letters still too, so yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look through them.
Then it might be that Gleb, who is doing the scanning of people's old letters, he might be really interested in that. He's taking out all personal data, so there is no kind of GDPR aspects of everything, and but it's very from a kind of looking into a culture. It's really interesting to see sort of the communication that went on.
Yeah, when I was talking with this co-pilot,
Yeah.
there was over frequently mentioned that the Commodore 64, it was a very collaborative
Mm.
scene of people helping each other, and that made progress. That helped progress.
Except one thing. Crunchers. That was stuff that you kept to yourself.
But still, you know, there were no patents and stuff, so no, really.
Yeah.
If you could figure it out, then yeah, good.
Super, Huyvind. Thank you so much for your time and for being a nice guy and still being interested. And if I can lure you back to do a bit of C64 coding again, that would be absolutely brilliant. And I dare you. You could never make something that beats Exomiser.
Probably not. You know,
No, I dare you. Do try it.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you.
Cheers.
That was everything we had for today. I am so humble that Øyvind took the time. He's one of my heroes from the golden era in the mid-80s. Thank you, Øyvind, for taking the time, and best of luck with your current ventures in the travel planning software. All the best. Bye-bye.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. FairLight.